Everyone turned. "What do you mean?" Chief Daniels asked. The employee hesitated before finally saying, "He's not the only one who does this." A new silence filled the room, one heavier than before. Chief Daniels exchanged a glance with Reynolds. The problem was bigger than one person. This wasn't just about tonight. It was about something deeper. And just like that, a new battle had begun. Chief Daniels took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. She looked around the store, at the employees, the customers still watching, the officers now standing quietly. This wasn't just about her. It never had been. She turned to Reynolds. "We need to talk to them," she said, nodding toward the employees. "Every single one." He gave a firm nod in return. This wasn't ending here. It was only the beginning of real change. The store manager, still standing there, seemed smaller now. He knew there was nothing left to say. No excuse strong enough to undo what had been done. The officers, humbled and shaken, walked toward the exit, knowing their actions had consequences. As Chief Daniels left, she glanced back once. The store felt different now, like a place where truth had finally been spoken. And as she stepped outside, she knew one thing for sure. This city still had work to do, and she wasn't done yet. She walked into the store like any other customer, minding her own business. But the moment they saw her, security was on high alert. A black woman, dressed casually, alone. Their eyes followed her every move. Then, without warning, they surrounded her, accused her of stealing. And before she could even explain, they humiliated her in front of everyone. Handcuffed, dragged out. People whispered, some even laughed. The officers smirked, certain they had caught a criminal. But as they reached for her ID, everything changed. Their faces went pale, hands trembled. She wasn't just anybody, she was their boss. The police chief. The officers, once so confident, were now frozen in disbelief. The store manager who called them, speechless. The crowd, stunned. And then she spoke. What she said next, no one saw it coming. Stay tuned, because this story is about to take a turn no one expected. The air grew thick with tension. The officers exchanged nervous glances, their hands still gripping the cuffs around her wrists. The store manager, who had been so sure of himself moments ago, now shifted uncomfortably. The woman, the one they had humiliated, arrested, and treated like a common thief, slowly lifted her gaze. She took a deep breath, steady but powerful. "Take these off." Now, her voice was calm, but it carried weight. One of the officers hesitated before fumbling for the key. The cuffs clicked open, leaving red marks on her wrists. She rubbed them lightly, but never broke eye contact. A few customers had pulled out their phones, recording the unfolding disaster. The officers knew this wasn't just a mistake, it was career-ending. But who had called them in the first place? And why had they assumed the worst? As she reached into her pocket, pulling out her badge, the room fell silent. The badge glinted under the store's fluorescent lights, a symbol of everything they had just ignored. One of the officers swallowed hard. Chief Daniels. He muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. The name alone sent a chill through the group. The store manager took a step back, his confidence fading. He had called the police, certain that she didn't belong there, certain that she was up to no good. But now, he was staring at a woman with the power to turn his life upside down. Chief Daniels didn't say a word at first. She let the weight of the moment settle. The silence made them squirm. She had spent years in this very city, working cases, building trust, enforcing justice. And yet today, she was reduced to just another suspicious person. One of the officers finally spoke. "Chief, we." She held up a hand. "No, don't. Not yet." Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. She looked at the manager. "You called them. Tell me why." The manager opened his mouth, but no words came out. He glanced at the officers, looking for help, but none of them dared to speak. Then from the back of the store, someone called out, "I think we all know why." The tension snapped tight, every eye turning toward the voice. The truth was closing in, and no one could escape it now. A ripple of unease spread through the store. Eyes darted between Chief Daniels and the unseen speaker. The manager stiffened, his fingers twitching at his sides. The officers remained frozen, their earlier authority replaced by sheer discomfort. A customer stepped forward. "I saw everything," she said, phone still recording. "This isn't right." The truth was unraveling, and it wasn't looking good for those who had rushed to judge. The store was dead silent, except for the quiet hum of the overhead lights. The officers shifted uncomfortably, their hands now at their sides, no longer gripping their belts or radios. The store manager's face was drained of color, his confidence shattered. Chief Daniels didn't move. She didn't have to. The weight of their mistake was crushing enough. The customer recording took a step closer. "You all saw it. She didn't do anything. But you still cuffed her. You still humiliated her." Her voice was steady, but there was fire behind it. More people in the store murmured in agreement. Then from the back, a young employee stepped forward. His uniform was slightly wrinkled, his name tag barely hanging on. He swallowed hard before speaking. "I heard him," he said, nodding toward the manager. "Before he called the cops. He said, 'Watch her. She looks like trouble.'" A hushed gasp ran through the crowd. The manager's face darkened. "That's not true," he blurted out, too quickly. But the damage was done. Chief Daniels tilted her head, studying him. "So you judged me before I even spoke. Before I even had a chance." Her words were measured, but the weight behind them was undeniable. The young employee stepped forward again. "That's not all," he added hesitantly. "After you were handcuffed," he laughed. A sharp inhale swept through the onlookers. The room suddenly felt too small, too exposed. The truth wasn't just coming out. It was unraveling, faster than anyone could control. The manager's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Chief Daniels exhaled slowly, then turned to the officers. "And you. Did you ever stop to question why you were really called?" Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Then just when it seemed like the tension couldn't climb any higher, the store doors swung open. A new presence entered the room. Someone powerful. Someone who could change everything. And just like that, the night wasn't over. It was only beginning. The store doors swung open with force, and in walked a tall, commanding figure in a crisp suit. His sharp gaze swept the room, instantly demanding attention. The officers stiffened, recognizing him immediately. Deputy Commissioner Reynolds. His eyes landed on Chief Daniels, then flicked to the manager and the officers. "I got a call," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Seems we have a situation." The manager opened his mouth, but Reynolds held up a hand. "No, I don't want excuses." He turned to the officers. "You arrested your own chief. Without cause. Without asking questions. Do you have anything to say for yourselves?" One officer cleared his throat. We thought." "That was your mistake," Chief Daniels cut in, her voice unwavering. "You thought instead of asking. You assumed instead of investigating. That's not how we do this job." The weight of her words hung in the air. The officers looked down, their shame evident. The crowd watched, waiting for what would come next. Then, just when it seemed like the story had reached its peak, Reynolds turned back to the manager. "And you," he said coldly. "This isn't the first complaint we've had about you." The manager's face drained of color. We'll be launching a full investigation into your hiring practices and past incidents, Reynolds continued. And I strongly suggest you start looking for a new job. A murmur ran through the crowd. The young employee who had spoken earlier let out a breath of relief. Chief Daniels finally took a step forward, unlocking her gaze from the manager. But just as the tension began to ease, a voice from the back of the store spoke up again. What about the others?